Welcome to another edition of Bunker Office Hours, a weekly live show brought to you by the team at Bunker Labs, a national network of veteran and military spouse entrepreneurs dedicated to growing our ecosystem. I'm your host, the one and only Iron Mike Steadman, coming to you from the beautiful city of Newark, New Jersey, joined by my co-host, Amy Warrington, and our special guest today, Steve Harrison, Corporate Development Associate Lead at USAA. We're going to be talking about everything you need to know about the USAA Pitch Competition. Know a lot of you founders out there are looking for some non-dilutive capital. This is an opportunity to get it. And so really important topic. This is something that's important to the community. I can't tell you how many entrepreneurial circles I move in, and founders are always asking for access to capital, right? So getting out of that valley of death in the initial startup phase. And so USAA Pitch Competition, again, is an absolutely amazing opportunity to get some capital. So before Steve and I chop it up, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Amy to share any updates that are taking place in the bunker.
Thanks, Mike. Oh. Sorry, I'm having issues. Okay,
all good.
So let's see. This week, we've got the USA Pitch Competition apps are open, which we will talk about extensively today. And then you can check that out at bunkerlabs.org/USAA-pitch. And then our CEO Circle apps are also open. And that's bunkerlabs.org/CEO-circle. And then check out the latest on the blog. And that's just Bunker Labs blog. You can find it. We've got a Pride Spotlight this week since it's Pride Month. So a member of our LGBT community and Bunker Labs community, spotlight on him and what he's doing. And then I think that's it. So back to you, and we'll talk about USA.
Awesome. A couple of things on the personal front. So I'll be on the road in the next 2 weeks. Next week, I'm going out to Tampa, Florida for the PS27 Ventures Black Founders Forum. That's hosted by Naval Academy grad, Marine Infantry Officer Jim Stallings. He runs a venture capital firm out there called PS27 Ventures. So I'll be there for that. So if you're in the Tampa area, it'd be great to see you. The other thing is the CEO Circle Fly-In that's taking place, I believe, the 19th through 22nd, Amy. And I'll be there for that, capturing some interviews, hanging out with all the amazing veteran entrepreneurs and military spouses in CEO Circle. So I'm real excited for that. So ping me. Looking forward to seeing some of y'all in person. Just like we talked about before we went live, Steve, it's great to record podcasts. It's great to be virtual, but there's nothing like breaking bread and hanging out in person. So really looking forward to that. So without further ado, Steve, introduce yourself to the people and let's talk about this upcoming pitch competition.
Awesome. Yeah. Hey, well, thank you very much for this opportunity. Very excited to be here. So let me start real quick by telling you who I am, what I do for USAA. So I work in corporate development. We look for opportunities to invest in startups, but we are strategic investors, which basically means we want to be a customer first if at all possible. So I've been with the company over 20 years. So generally speaking, I know the problems we're trying to solve and who's working on them. So when I see a startup, I go, oh, I need to introduce you to so-and-so. And I spend a lot of my time just being a matchmaker. Last year, USAA embarked on a series of pitch contests to help celebrate our 100-year anniversary. And the point of that was really to kind of carry forward the spirit of innovation that brought about a company like USAA. And we thought it would be a great way to pay honor to our military heritage by doing the same for other military veteran and military spouse entrepreneurs. That said, last year was really about giving back, and we were looking for companies that were just at the very nascent stages, getting started, so we could really make a big difference. We gave away well over $100,000 between regional events and a national finals. And we feel like that probably made a lot of difference for these startups. And certainly we made introductions that I believed certainly helped them. This year, we are continuing that, but we're doing it with a twist, which is it's no longer going to be a series of pitch competitions, it's just going to be one. And our our point here on this one, our purpose is we're really looking for a later stage company, one that can actually engage with USAA, and hopefully we can really make a difference, not only again for the startup, but also USAA in this case, because by partnering with them, that takes a certain amount of traction. You already need to be in market with a viable product. We're looking for companies that have at least $1 million worth of $1 million from revenue, maybe some venture capital already, not necessarily a requirement, but I mean, it certainly helps. But a little bit more mature than the companies that we were looking at last year. One of the things that we discovered in our events last year is, boy, there are a lot of military entrepreneurs that have also have larger companies too. And case in point, the CEO circles are a great example of that. And so what we want to do is give these other companies an opportunity to shine and also present themselves not only to the community, but also to USAA senior leaders, and have a shot at winning some money, but also maybe even hopefully potentially a contractual relationship, which would be ideal.
So I think this is a great opportunity to even just talk about corporate venture. So This is a movement that's taking place. You're seeing a lot of corporate venture studios where they're bringing in teams to help them spin out, products that they can commercialize on the market. And what it sounds like this pitch competition is an opportunity is to really source the military connected community for talent that USA could potentially leverage. And so this is really getting back to old school value add.
Yeah, totally. Mike, I think we were chatting a little bit before, and I agree with you. The ability to partner with companies outside is really critical. And when you think about how innovation happens in large companies versus small companies, it is critical for large companies to partner with smaller companies that can be more nimble, more agile, move faster, maybe sometimes break things, but do it in such a way that a larger company can't, because without that, it's very difficult for us to have the same kind of progression, at least at this speed at which a startup can operate. So it's critical for all of us that we form those relationships and tap in that talent, just like you said.
So in the Marine Corps, we have a process called MET-TC analysis, right? So this is essentially where you put your mind in that of the enemy and see how would they look at the terrain, all right? And the reason I think this is important is because when you're talking about value add, you need to get in the mind of USA and say, what are the trends that they care about? What are they paying attention to? Where are the opportunities you're seeing? So it also implies to me that some of these potential startups need to do some research, and see, hey, where's the opportunity? What are the things that USA is investing in currently? And where are the business opportunities that you can see yourself?
Yep. Amy, I see your note. Couple questions looks like they've already popped up. One is, are nonprofits eligible? And as much as I would like to further the great work that's going on in nonprofits, the spirit of what we're trying to do here is trying to find a company that can actually be leveraged in the USA ecosystem. So, you think about companies that help with, say, insurance or banking or data, AI, security, anything where USA can be a customer, write a check to one of these companies as a customer. That's really what we're looking at. There are some phenomenal nonprofits out there, and I would definitely encourage them to connect with our corporate responsibility team. They are great at finding ways to help out the community from the nonprofit aspect. The other thing that we need to mention is that the deadline for applying for this event is looming. The date, the last date we're accepting applications is June 30th. So the actual event that we're going to be hosting is going to be October 19th in Washington, D.C. So those are two critical dates that everyone needs to keep in mind as we're on the road to making this thing happen.
What's the second date you said in Washington, D.C.?
October 19th. That's the date that we're actually hosting the event. So those companies that are applying will need to be able to travel. It will be an in-person event. To your point about being face-to-face, that's where we're going to do this.
Yeah, I'm going to try my best to be there for that. I wasn't able to go to the last one, but I think this will be a good one to come to. Now, one thing I've noticed being on the other side of receiving applications is it's data heavy, right? So you start applying and it comes on screen as like a spreadsheet, right?
Yep,
and then you
exactly.
have like 200, 300 people applying, all right? How do these entrepreneurs really make sure that they stand out when they're applying? Because I think sometimes, on the other side of the computer screen, you're all excited, you're sharing your story, you're doing all this other stuff. But again, it can just get lost in the 300 plus applications you'll probably receive.
Yeah, that's a great question. So when you think about what are the things that somebody like me is looking at on the other end, in order to make the decision about who we should consider or not, we're looking for things like traction. We're looking for things like, does it fit in our space? And so calling out things that that are important to us, such as how much revenue you're currently generating. I mean, actual revenue, who you're currently doing business with. If you've got any brand names that give people confidence that, you're already a well-established company in this space, or an emerging company in this space. Maybe some pilots you're doing, some proofs of concept, which are great. Any results that you have. So if there's a product that does something better, faster, cheaper that you've created, tell me about it, especially if you can quantify it with numbers. Those are all things that add a lot of weight to your application. And the sooner you put that at the top of your story, the better. The other thing is one very succinct sentence. And start with this that says what the company is. I've read hundreds of applications where I finish reading a very long description. I still don't know what it is. So when we talk about an elevator pitch, you should be able to say one sentence very succinctly, and I should be able to get the idea.
We call that the functional benefit. So this is what
Yes.
I do for Brain. It's like, what is it you do?
Yes.
And who do you do it for? Right? Make it plain for people, especially when there's so much noise out there. But I do have to ask a question.
Yeah.
Small business, traditional small business versus tech startup. Does it matter?
No, it does not matter. Here's what I would say. Tech startups are, there are a lot of reasons that people like me are going to be giving them a hard look. And most of that has to do with the ability to scale. We love tech platforms. We love things that are technology based. Services are hard to scale. So if you've got something that has a lot of human capital that's required in order to do it, I would still say, apply, but it's going to have to be something really special or unique to stand out. I would say that there's always probably going to be a bias towards technology rather than just people. In other words, let me put it this way. Consultants are great and necessary, but you don't want to invest in just consultants. You want actually platforms out there that can help you accomplish things and transform your business.
We've had quite a few founders in our network raise, I believe they're called SIPR grants, SIPR. These are grants from the federal government to do R&D, et cetera, potential tech products. And I know a lot of these founders tend to report, at least externally, or, when I'm talking to them, you start asking them revenue, sometimes that revenue is tied to those grants.
Yeah.
Does that count for the
Absolutely.
USAA?
Yeah, for sure. Because what you're doing is it's revenue that you can recognize. And it's basically, when you think about what I'm looking for are reasons to believe that your company has got some traction. And so those grants are a piece of that. Recurring revenue is better. Don't get me wrong, but there's nothing wrong. In fact, I would say that's quite an accomplishment to even get the grants to begin with, because somebody else is giving you that endorsement. So definitely include those in your write-up, include those in your revenue numbers.
We got a question from Kareem Kingston. I'm going to rephrase it. He asked, what specific type of businesses in the pitch competition are you looking for? But I'm going to switch it up. Are there any specific like verticals or categories of, so let's say fintech, consumer tech, etc.?
So what USAA, I imagine that our folks who are listening to this right now have a pretty good idea of what we do. But if you think about it in its rawest form, we are basically a very large property and casualty insurance company, a large bank, and a life insurance company. We also have 35,000 plus employees that support it. So we're also a large enterprise. So when you think about companies that really can help in that ecosystem, the verticals that I would describe are fintech, insurtech, and then the enterprise side is pretty wide open. So enterprise, data, security, AI, those are all great candidates for this. Retail, no, because that's not something that USA is really going to be involved in. But one of the things that we found that was really interesting in the pitch contest that we hosted last year, there were a lot of cybersecurity companies, and that's a really great fit for us. It makes sense, and that's a real need for ours. So I would say anything where you think USAA could be a customer, that's those are the kind of companies that would fit in.
And you're primarily looking for, I know we say growth stage, right?
Yeah.
But $1 million in revenue. But what if a company has like $10 million in revenue? Should they still apply?
I would definitely talk to them. They're the reality is that I think that a smaller company is going to probably benefit more from the $50,000 prize. Having said that, we'll definitely take a look at them, and I think it's a great way to market their company in front of USA executives. So, I would encourage them to apply.
And last question for me is the process, right? So first applications, June 30th, your spreadsheet, get that pitch deck, get all that stuff dialed in, right? Then once you get selected from there, the next step is what? Is it the actual pitch competition itself? Is there an interview round ahead of time? And how long is the actual pitch?
So the process from application to the pitch contest, we'll review all of the applications. Bunker reviews them, we review them at USAA. We come to consensus on who the top candidates are. And then we will notify those candidates that those applicants that they've been selected. And if I remember correctly, I think I should look this up. I think it's like 6 or 8 is really basically what we're looking for. Pitches will be a little bit longer. And if I remember correctly, it's about 10 minutes or so per pitch. So it's not going to be a long period of time, but any of those of you who have done pitching know that that's plenty to get your message. You should be able to get your message in a lot shorter period of time than that. There will be some Q&A by judges in that process. One of the other things that will happen between being notified and the pitch contest is that Bunker will specifically work with you to hone your pitch to make sure it fits. One of the things that you are going to be given, though, is a lot of latitude in order to what to present. I have some advice for you. Things like watch out for videos, watch out for things that could go wrong, because these will be live demos. But really, the forum is yours to share your message, and Bunker will help coach you on that. But in the end, it's your message to deliver.
We're going to transition to the next phase of office hours on, book recommendations. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to have Amy send me the recording from this interview, and we're going to run it on the Transition podcast to get the word out there even more for people. And then also a lot of y'all can re-listen to it. Additionally, there's a lot of support in the Bunker on these pitch competitions. So my first pitch ever in life was in like 2017 during the Stanford Ignite program, and I got it on YouTube. I was absolutely terrible, right? But then I got trained up, did some programs in Bunker, and there's a lot of experience in the ecosystem is what I'm trying to get out. We have a blog post on how to set up a good pitch. I recorded a podcast on how to set up a good pitch, and I have a newsletter through the Transition podcast as well on organizing your pitch. So there's a lot of resources, and I'll be sure to include links to those once I release for the Transition podcast. So I am going to answer one more question. Let me see. You said it's a question about health tech. What are USA's related fields of interest? Russell Glover says she's health tech. Is there any health tech insurance?
We do offer, USA offers a Medicare supplement product, and we do have some limited partnerships related to health insurance. So I would say that definitely that fits. It's not as big as some of our other opportunities like property and casualty insurance or banking, but it's in the right vertical, like we were talking about. So you will definitely get a look with a health tech solution.
And Russell, I would make sure, again, just try to make sure it's aligned with the company too. So they can either be a potential customer, like we talked about before, or how this is technology that they can leverage, potentially monetize down the line. So remember, you want to flip the map. All right, Steve, book recommendation. Yep. What you got?
So right now, about halfway through Sapiens. So a friend of mine recommended this years ago, and it's one of those things that I just have been putting off a little bit, just because it was a little deeper than I some of my other materials, my other reading books. But this is my other books I'm reading, I should say. But this has really been interesting. It's almost, again, I'm only about halfway through. It's almost philosophical in some ways, but it really talks about how humans have evolved almost very similarly, but simultaneously in different locations throughout the world. So you think about things like, when we all became farmers, well, that happened independently. It wasn't like one area did that and then it was adopted by others. Same thing with language, same thing with religion, governments. So it's just interesting to see how you almost get a sense that some of the way we operate today was inevitable. But again, I'm only about halfway through, but I'm kind of curious where it ends up. It's giving me some thoughts about how to look at our society a little bit differently.
Awesome. I started reading Sapiens. I'm going to circle back to it, but right now I'm on my kind of human performance kind of phase, reading a lot of those books. And so my book rec for the week is actually Peak, the new science of athletic performance that is revolutionizing sport. One of the reasons I'm actually reading this book is I'm a boxing coach, right? So I run a boxing gym here in Newark, Ironbound Boxing, but additionally, I'm a business coach, acceleration coach, professional acceleration coach. The amount of clients I work with that are having trouble sleeping, not getting to the gym, not taking care of themselves, because entrepreneurship, being a business owner, can really beat you up. And so I just want to make sure that when I'm providing guidance and advice, I'm providing stuff that's actually peer reviewed, not just speculation. And it's actually helped me up my game so much. And so that's why I'm really going through this book, and I'm getting so many good takeaways from it that I'm actually going to have a podcast where I'll talk about this kind of stuff. Because sometimes, like you said, a lot of us military veterans, military spouses, we forget who we are. Sometimes you need a little ground punch. In the military, you work out all the time, right? You can move some weight, but then all of a sudden you turn into a sack of potatoes, and it's starting to affect your work and home life. And so how do we get revitalized? How do we get re-energized? And so looking forward to applying those lessons, in a lot of my content, and then also the clients and stuff that I'm working with. So Peak, really great book. Excited to get you guys some feedback on it. All right. So Steve, as we close out here, any final thoughts, words of encouragement for our viewers today?
Yeah, just when in doubt, apply. I mean, I don't mind going through applications. So, this is as you pointed out, Mike, this is a great opportunity to get access to non-dilutive funding through a grant, but also gives you a chance to, practice your pitch, get your word out to the broader community, and maybe put yourself in front of some USAA executives who might give you a chance of getting an operational contract, which in the end could be far more lucrative than a grant to begin with.
Either way, I want you to know how much we appreciate the support you all put into this community. You know, USA is synonymous with the military connected community. And so to have you all support this veteran entrepreneurship and military spouse entrepreneurship is so impactful, and really looking forward for all our entrepreneurs to get out there, pitch, and get an opportunity to secure some of this non-dilutive capital. For all our viewers, do me a favor and make sure you subscribe to the Transition Podcast. If you have not done so already, I will be dropping a recording of this interview on the podcast this week as a refresher and also to get the word out. If there's a topic you'd like me to cover either on office hours or the podcast, message me on LinkedIn at Iron Mike Steadman or shoot me an email at mike.steadman@bunkerlabs.org. I'd like to acknowledge our sponsors for the Transition Podcast, which is MetLife Foundation, for making it possible. Until next time, everyone, peace, love, and have a great rest of your week.